Is Donald Trump the pro-Israel candidate? It's a very interesting question. Obviously, because of a large evangelical base, Donald Trump is always going to be pro-Israel, but that doesn't mean that he's supporting Israel in its current situation with Hamas and Hezbollah. Donald Trump is in an interesting position. He's in an interesting position because, one, the Democrats, who have a large Muslim voting base, have to be very careful on what they say about Israel, or they're at risk of losing that voting base. But 70% of American Jews still vote Democratic, and a lot of Democrats in Congress are Jewish, and a lot of their funders are Jewish. So it's a tricky issue for Democrats, because if they isolate the Arab Muslim voter base, they will lose states like Minnesota and potentially even Michigan. That's a very big deal. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is interesting because his voter base will most likely vote for him no matter what. But when you think about who is the pro-Israel candidate, here's the one thing that you need to keep in mind. Donald Trump heavily dislikes Benjamin Netanyahu. It is very famous in Trump circles that upon the 2020 election, Benjamin Netanyahu was one of the first people to congratulate Biden on his victory. Donald Trump is quoted as saying that Netanyahu stabbed him in the back, and he essentially cussed him out. I think he called him an asshole or some kind of traitor. Trump defines geopolitics by relationships. Most politicians do, and sometimes relationships are more important than strategy. So if you're actually thinking about who the most pro-Israel candidate is, it may, in a very weird way, actually be Kamala Harris, more so than Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's in a stage where obviously his base is very pro-Israel, though 30% of American Jews who are Republican are very passionate, right? And so you don't want to isolate that base, which is why Trump has been so strategic in the way that he talks about the Israeli issue. Like, he constantly says Israel's doing terrible on the marketing front. That's a way of criticizing the Israeli government without actually blaming them for anything, because you can blame the marketing on the media as opposed to Israel. Where this gets really interesting is I often hear the claim that Donald Trump accepts a giant amount of Israel money, so he's always going to be beholden to Israel donors. That's not always the case. You have to understand, when you're giving a political candidate money, sometimes it's because you have to, because you have no other option. If Kamala Harris is the anti-Israel candidate and you're a rich person who still wants influence, and even if you know Donald Trump isn't pro-Israel, what option do you have? This is, once again, if you remember my P. Diddy video, it's either coming before or after this. Sometimes the puppet can become a little bit more powerful than the puppeteer. And there's a point where politicians can become so powerful, so entrenched, and with donors who have limited options, they can almost demand money. I can name plenty of insider examples, even on the local level here in Tampa Bay, where someone who is in power will find someone who's wealthy and demand that they give them money, or having a risk of their assets not being seized, but let's just say disciplined in some sort of way. So when you are a politician and you either have power or have a chance at power, donors can get scared, and donors can give you money even if it's not going to buy them influence, just to buy themselves protection. So when you look at who's donating to Donald Trump, you need to keep that factor in mind, that some of these donors simply don't have anywhere else to put their money. So you may think that Donald Trump is owned, but just because they're giving him money does not mean they have all the power. Two, Donald Trump's relationships are more important than anything else. I know in this video we're mainly talking about the relationship with Israel, but you should take these lessons and apply them to any relationship Kamala Harris or Donald Trump has with not only other countries, but other donors as well.